So hello and welcome back to Downpatrick Monitor Farm. It's the 20th of April. This week would traditionally be our T1 timings for winter barley and our early winter wheat. And we'll get a look at them in a moment. But first of all, we're in a field of spring barley. This was drilled on the 9th of March. We had 3 or 4 days rain after that. But since that, we've had about 2 millimeters of rain in the last month. So really, here in the east coast of County Down, our major problem going forward at the moment with the given weather forecast is a lack of moisture. And we'll touch on that as we go through the various crops. The temperature has been disappointing. An average temperature of about 7 degrees daily, and we've had frosts up down to -3 for nearly 2 weeks. Now, this past week we haven't really had any frost, which is a good help. But low temperatures, a wind chill, and too dry. And I know that most of the 3/4 of Northern Ireland are saying, what on earth are you talking about? We're looking for a bit of dry weather and it's too wet. But down here we are suffering from pretty much drought conditions. And given that the fact there's not much rain in the forecast for the next 2 weeks, it doesn't really bode well. We were supposed to get rain over the weekend. Everybody else has got rain. I think we got 0.4 millimeters. Barley drilled on the 9th of March, so that's pretty much 6 weeks ago. And it's just sitting there looking moisture. It's come up and it's there, but it should be taken off now. Although I'm quite pleased with how it's developing underneath the ground. So the roots have bound to the soil really well. There's been 180 kilos to the hectare of liquid 24% nitrogen plus 18% sulfur applied to the seedbed. Soil temperature today is 8.7 in this spring barley. Currently, the average plant count is 336 plants per square metre. It's looking quite green and healthy at the moment. Just needs a bit of heat and a bit of rain. It did have a litre of micronutrients and half a litre of cormaquat added just there a couple of days ago to help it tiller out and keep it moving on. We're now up in the spring barley drilling trial plots. This was drilled exactly 2 weeks after the rest of our spring barley, just so we can get everybody lined up. And at this moment in time, there's virtually no difference in any plot that I can see at the minute. The one with the Simtech into the ploughed ground has maybe went in a wee bit deeper and it's a wee bit further behind. But other than that, plant counts, germination, evenness across the field is all pretty much the same at the moment. And it's nearly a couple of weeks too early just to do a plant count and stuff to make sure I get it accurate for you rather than giving false reading to assure what we have. The early potatoes have been hammered by the frost since we were last talking to you. And they're starting to make recovery now. You can see where all the burnt leaves are still there to the side. Thankfully new shoots have come out and are growing well. It has set them back, but at least they've recovered and we're getting underway here now. The advantage of a wee bit more heat under the fleece, because this year there's definitely no heat in the wind. Maybe dry and sunny, but there's not much heat. So the ground that's not covered in fleece is 7.9 this morning. Now this is 10 o'clock in the morning, so I'd expect it to be warm up a wee bit during the day, but if we just swap over and go, pretty much 11 degrees, which is actually a wee bit lower than it was last week. But 10 o'clock in the morning, 11 as opposed to 7 something. It makes a major benefit. So the ones under the fleece along the hedge are making much more progress. They were sheltered from the sun in the mornings that wee bit longer. It's good to see them getting up and going. and looking really clean and healthy. The only other problem we have, we've had so much wind that the fleece has been battering up and down on the drills, broken the seal from the herbicide, and we have lots of weeds. So we're going to have to take the cover off for two reasons now shortly. The fact that we've no more rain forecast and the drills are getting pretty dry, rather than them drying out too much and being really hard to wet, we'll water them to keep the potatoes going, and we'll go through them with our herbicide to take out those weeds, stop them choking the potatoes. Another field in potatoes needing moisture. Again, it's the organic matter in the farmyard manure holding a bit of moisture. Like, we're now in hawking winter barley, which has greened up quite a bit in the last few days. It's had its last application of fertilizer 5 days ago, and it's now up to 200 kilos to the hectare of 24N plus 18 sulphur. And you can see the last application, due to the cold weather, has tipped the odd leaf, but at the moment I'm quite a lot happier to have it on and get it greened up as not putting it on. We did hold off a wee while longer than I'd liked based on the cold weather. Now, there's the odd bit of disease coming, but it's few and far between. Do have to go through now with a follow-up herbicide to take out the ground sill. One thing the plant has done is tillered really well. We have an average of 5.7 tillers per plant and 252 plants per square metre. Another problem we could have in the winter barley is there's 10 tillers in this plant. The 3 of them will never make it of any use. They're only going to be a nuisance and provide us with grains at harvest, which will be an absolute pain. Of all the diseases we could have, and there only is one in the field, ramularia. We have both Hawking and Orwell winter barley, and to be honest, there's absolutely no different in them. Growth stage, colour, development, tillers, they're just two identical looking plants at the moment. Winter oats have gone from looking excellent to, in my opinion, looking good rather than excellent. But you can see the distinct line down the back here. And this is where, if you remember from the last video, I applied 60 kilos of N to the bit that looked pretty sorry for itself. It actually looks really good now. But the bit that had no nitrogen, which it got it a week ago, but it's still just starting to work, I suppose, now, has been held back quite a bit. I've been told that's a good thing that I needed to do, because our plant count was too high, and if the crop was too thick we would end up with smaller panicles and smaller grains. And at the end of the day, the fact that this is going for whites quality and grain quality is everything. Frost came and it's been a bit later than I would have liked, but hopefully it hasn't held it back too much. We'll get another follow-up next week of another 60 kilos to hectare. Whether it rains or not, it has to go on now, I suppose. We will probably, due to the nature of needing quality, go through now next week with the fungicide, just to keep it right. There's the odd wee bit in the very tips of the leaves there, you can see, but all in all it's pretty good. So I'm still hopeful with the oats. It's just a wee bit counterintuitive that when you look at this lovely lush green bit and this bit's a lot lighter and you feel it's been held back a bit, but I'm told that this bit will probably yield better than this bit. Some more oats, and these ones are going to get a follow-up herbicide to take out Dawkins and the odd thistle. This is our XT as winter wheat. which are hopefully keeping for milling, for flour, for the shop. It's got its liquid nitrogen application there just at the weekend. I'm not sure whether the camera shows it up or not, but where there was a slight overlap, it's a lot happier and greener. But where it's only had its one application, it's starting to change colour slightly, so it is in drastic need of it, and the end sensor says the same. In general, it's not looking too bad. The leaves are really clean, even the lower leaves. They're bleached a bit, but I think that's more so from the fertilizer application and growth regulator in the cold weather. You can just see the next leaf emerging there, so we'll dissect it and have a wee look and see. But at this point, it's had absolutely zero fungicide. All the crop has had a 60 kilos to the hectare of liquid N, and it's now had a further 100 kilos. We would normally have split that in two, but because of the weather, we're putting two together, and it's a wee bit later than I would have liked. It has had a litre of growth regulator and a litre of micronutrients, just to try and help it along with the cold weather. Definitely with this crop being for milling, and we also wanting to use it in the farm shop ourselves for cooking, we're wanting to use as few inputs as possible in terms of fungicides, etc. So that's maybe why we're going to push our luck a wee bit more on this. But at the moment, as you can see, there's nothing to warrant us really applying anything. Plus, based on the fact that it's cold and the weather's for dry. So I make it, we're at a good growth stage 32. You can see that okay. This is our field of Gleam. First time growing this variety. Been quite pleased all the way through with how it's developed. And absolutely whistle clean. Even the lower leaves, hardly a blemish. Wee bit further behind actually for all the development of it. Growth stage 31. This field had no autumn herbicide, so it has had a full rate of Avocet and Mondial to take out the weeds and wild oats and any groundsel that's there all in the one go. We're in the Graham winter wheat that had the flood at the bottom, as you can see there by the bare patch. It also has the stripe up the side where I forgot to turn the drill on. We did re-drill that in November when we seen it, but it hasn't come due to the weather and the crows. So we'll drill them two running wildflowers, help the beneficial insects. But these sort of hills and the shalier fields with more soil or stone content are really struggling with the dry weather. And we'll just show you here now. So I've dug down, I've got a hole, it's 14 inches deep. And fair play to the wheat, it's trying. There's roots all the way to the bottom of that hole. And that's the start really of the subsoil. It has a real good root structure if we could just get a drop of rain to get it up and away. But we really are struggling now for moisture. This is the soil that I took out of the bottom of that hole. It's just dry dust. And this was min-tilled wheat after maize. So it got very little working. You can see the maize residue and all on top of the ground there still. Plant count is lower in this field, but it has tillered really well. So hopefully that will help compensate, and if we can get good big bushy heads on it with the fact that it has room to grow, it could compensate every bit as much. Look at this. The benefit of no insecticides. So we have an average of 151 plants per metre squared, but 7.6 shoots. This is a field of Telsus winter wheat, and of all the fields, this is the one that sort of gives me a wee bit of excitement and the enjoyment of growing crops. I think this field holds a lot of potential. This wheat, sowed after potatoes in October. Most of our wheat is after October, potatoes right now. Had 60 kilos of N at the start of March. A couple of weeks later it had 2,000 gallons of cattle slurry piped on, and just at the start of the week there, 3 or 4 days ago, it's had another 100 kilos to the hectare of liquid N, 24N 18S, and it's looking pretty good. There's a few wee bits of tipping where the fertilizer has got it slightly with the weather, but I'm glad it's on and it's going. We have no herbicide applied to this field yet, the way it was in the autumn. We have chickweed, groundsel and fumitory. The chickweed actually would be the major problem in this field, but we have herbicide on a couple of days ago to knock that out. And the plants are looking pretty good. Again, needing a bit of moisture. Just look at the length of the leaves on the plant, and these aren't even yield making leaves yet. This is also my yen entry. The only thing slightly with the length of the leaves and the way the plant is in this variety, I think we will push growth regulator higher, because I'd be worried that it'll be a heavy plant given the weight of the leaves, and if we got a wet spell when it starts to head out, we could have difficulty there. It says it's got good enough standing power, but based on what we see so far compared to a lot of the other varieties, it's probably going to be pretty heavy whenever it's full green. We're now into our worst field of XT's wheat. Quite a big field, unfortunately. It was kind of a tale of two halves. Top half of the field is really thin and backward, and the bottom half of the field is doing quite well. The roots on the poorer parts of the field don't seem to be developing properly. I think part of the problem with it is this is a really good field of land in terms of high organic matter, etc. And even though it was min-tilled in, the fact that we didn't get it rolled, I think, has hindered the seed germination and development, and held it back because it was too fuzzy. Because there's a lot of organic matter, there's a lot of straw incorporated, etc. And it's sort of held it back. But even if you look and see how the ground is cracking and splitting up due to the weather, like, it's just pure dust. Like, there's zero moisture there. So I think if we're to summarise, there's one key ingredient in it all, and that's the weather. It's too dry here. We need rain, and we need rain now. The cold has meant that it's kept disease at bay. Crops are all very clean, but there's a sharp wind blowing which is aiding the drying of the soil. Potato crops are extremely dry. We're probably going to have to start irrigating the early ones. Spring barley needs rain. It's got its fertilizer in the soil, incorporated, everything's there, it just needs rain. Winter barley, rain and Bravo would solve its problems. Oats, we've purposely held it back a bit to try and make sure we didn't end up winning more tillers with early nitrogen, so hopefully that'll pick up now. Winter wheat, we have XT's, Gleam, Graham and Talsis. Pick of the bunch at the moment would be Talsis. It's our yen entry. XT is probably the most advanced, beyond growth stage 32 nearly. Gleam, growth stage 31. The rest of the Graham's pretty much heading for 32. Nothing's had any fungicide yet. We probably will put a bit of something in with the winter barley. I'll have a word with the agronomist to see if we can do anything for the Remularia, as it'll be getting a top up of herbicide to take out the ground soil anyway. Wheats have all had their herbicides topped up this week. They've had their extra nitrogen. They're all clean, so we're not going with any more fungicides at the moment. Weather forecast is dry, so I can't see why we're going to end up with any more disease. So at this point, just pray for rain. Thanks for watching, and I hope everybody gets the conditions they need for their own fields and their own farm. Anybody has any comments or any questions, either get in touch directly or leave a message in the comments box and I'll get back to you.